Hello and welcome back to Taking Back Saturday, a Happy Buyers Club podcast where we break down the real estate market each and every Friday to help home buyers build confidence, follow a process and hopefully buy really happy. I'm your host, Chase Jones, and joining me as he does each and every week is my man, real estate daddy, Sam Hunter. How are you, friend?
I was going to say, having listened to the episode last week, and we don't listen to many of these back, live once is enough, but I did listen to the chat with Jacob back last week, and I am not somebody you want to listen to on 1.5 speed.
I knew you were going to say that because that was probably the fastest intro I've ever done. I'm talking at a 1.5 speed, so if you are listening on 1.5 speed, you are getting this in like absolute warp speed.
For sure. We're going to do our best. I'm going to try and mumble less today.
Oh, nice.
Yep, it's not just the microphones. It's going to be me.
Okay, guys, in the comments, keep him honest. The mumbling stops today.
For sure.
If a new house is on your wish list for Santa this year, we are 3 weeks that you can probably make that happen.
For sure. This podcast and everything we're going to try and discuss, hopefully in enough detail to help you make some decisions today, is off the back of a very busy, very wet Saturday, which means two things. It's summer and Christmas is coming. And the fact that the Christmas tree's up in my house, right? It's real.
Ditto.
So there's not that long left if you want to put a Christmas tree up in a new house this year. You've got to make some decisions, and hopefully you've got to find the right one or the right enough one.
Sure. And speaking to like seeing people out and about on a wet weekend, doesn't that speak to true buyers? Like,
for sure.
When we talk about assessing numbers, to determine competition for any particular property, if they're there, umbrella in hand, in the absolute rain bomb event that was Saturday, I'd say they're pretty serious. I don't think these guys are just real estate tragics that are out just like, this is what we do on our Saturdays.
I agree with you entirely, except for one property. Shout out to friend of the show, Dion Tolley from Place. We're at a property in Hoff Street in Mount Gravatt, and the neighbour walked across the road, no umbrella in hand, middle of the rain, and just like chucked the thongs off in front, walked through the house like dripping wet.
Just testing that grout
again,
on the bottom level.
Just to be like, what have they done here? How waterproof is the tiling at the bottom floor of this property?
Been on the market for 5 weeks, just couldn't find the time
for sure. There's a lot of serious people around, and it's pretty clear that it feels at least like a lot of people have made the decision to really get into the market and try and make some decisions over the next couple of weeks. But also I think that's brought about a sense from a lot of sellers that maybe this side of Christmas is the right time to be on the market and to get a result, even if they're not moving until January.
Yeah, there's a saying that goes, more stock breeds more stock, right? People see that there's more people out in the market, and they're like, and they obviously probably have, more letterbox drops from the estate agents being like, hey, just listed, just sold. Hey, do you want to ride this wave? Keep that momentum going. It's probably fair to say that's what we're seeing in the market right now, right?
Definitely. More people always make the decision to sell when other people make the decision to sell, because the mindset of a lot of people in real estate is that it's really hard to buy a house. And sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. But when you own one and you want to move your family from one place to another, or a different life stage, upsizing, downsizing, whatever it is, you do want the sense of knowing where you're going before you get rid of where you are. And it's difficult to do that, particularly over the last few years where there's been sort of 40-50% reduction of the properties that are actively on the market compared to what Brisbane has been like pretty consistently since at least the GFC. So now we're getting those numbers back up. Some people are like, I might go and have a look at that. I like that. We see a lot more sort of at least attempts at subject to sale contracts going out in the market now. So there are a lot of people that are selling now with long settlements to give themselves the chance of buying, seeing that more and more people are coming to market and understanding that they will probably get what they want, but a better result for what they want if they already have a sale contract in their hands. I think that's also come about off the back of the last quarter, if you want to call it that, where while prices are still rising, they're not going up as steeply as they have for the last 12 months. And I think that there are a lot of sellers in the marketplace who've been watching and going, how good's this? We've got so much equity in our property. We have an opportunity to find what we want at a price we can afford to pay, but let's maximize this first. And they've been waiting and watching. And now that the market has lost some of its oomph, which is a really good thing for everybody, buyers and sellers. We said this a couple of weeks ago, right? Your house price is still going up. It's just not going up by 15 grand a month.
Just feels more sustainable now.
Like $4 grand a month now, if you're in $1 million house, shall we say. So they now go, okay, now's the time to sell. You know, it doesn't feel like the top of the market. And I don't think we're anywhere near the top of the market in Brisbane. That'll be a clip that we'll play back in 6 months if we get it right or wrong. But people have the sense that they can buy what they want now. So they're putting their place in the market. And that's actually a good thing. We need a little bit more liquidity in the Brisbane market for everybody to not feel like buying a house is unfair, and for a headline to not be price rises up by another 1.5%. What's going to happen? Affordability, is it a real estate bubble, etc.? I don't believe it is. I just think that we are now in a pretty typical real estate market, which is a great thing.
Yeah, and I think for buyers, it's a much better place to approach the market from as well. You're not having to project it's going to be crazy. We've said that before. Like sometimes certain properties in certain areas, it can go crazy. And you'll like, if you weren't actually there and understanding the context behind it, you look at the result and be like, oh my God, what is that?
Yeah.
But I think for a lot of buyers now, you know, going back to basics, the fundamentals of looking at comparable sales, even just slowing right down, jumping on realestate.com, bring up a map of all the recent sales in the last 3 months, make a list of them all, actually compare them. What's the size of the block? Is it comparable? How many bedrooms? How many bathrooms? What was the condition of the property like? How does it compare? Did it have a pool? Did it not have a pool? And truly slow it down to work out comparable sales. And you don't have to project this enormous spike in market growth. You can be like, okay, that property that did sell 6 weeks ago, that is the comp. And you can actually use that as the comparable sale, and you can use that when communicating to that sales agent. That's the property I'm comparing it to.
100%.
For this reason, this reason, and this reason.
We've had some success and also missed out on properties by comparing the listings that haven't sold recently as well. There's always a property just like the one that you want to buy, or maybe a little bit better, a little bit worse, that's sitting there. And it's sitting there because there are misaligned expectations between the market and the seller. 9 times out of 10, that's why it's sitting there anyway. And if it's not sold, and you understand the story behind that, it's had offers, they haven't accepted it, and you're looking at a better property or a worse property, and you can make an offer comparative to what they've had but said no to, that puts you in a position to justify where you see value in a property as well. So comparable sales are definitely the place to start. Stock that is sitting around, if you can understand why it's sitting and the interest that they've had and said no to, that puts you in a position to make a decision about where you see value in your own property as well, and say, hey, all that one's doing is help provide the value in this. Do they want to be in the same situation as these guys and turn down really good offers? That's their decision, but here's where I see value and here's why. Let's see where we go. Knowledge is power. And if you've got that information that you've gathered from sources, both from properties that have sold and what they would probably sell for in the current market, and things that are sitting unsold and why, all the power to you when you are actually trying to secure a property. We are seeing at the moment a lot of properties going to auction, and a lot of properties that are going to auction in, once this goes out, maybe a week's time, December 7th is a big auction weekend. Have you got a sense for why we're seeing more properties on auction campaigns than I think I've probably seen in the last 12 months? I would think that, and there's probably an entire podcast episode in this, but when you list a property for auction, it gives you 3 opportunities to actually sell that home. So you can sell it at auction. Obviously, it's got a date and a time, whether it's in rooms or at the property. You can rock up, put your hand up, sell it. It's an unconditional contract. What a lot of buyers, I think, don't necessarily consider when a property is listed for auction is that there are plenty of sellers happy to sell prior, and there are plenty of sellers, if they don't get their result on the day, they understand realistically where the market is. It's not their opinion. It's not an agent's opinion. It is the reality of the real estate market at the time that they decided to sell their property. And it gives them an opportunity to sell after, whether that's with somebody who does need a subject to sale contract or someone who just needs a finance clause because maybe they weren't actively in the market and they weren't as prepared as we talk about being every week, but they fell in love with the property, they couldn't bid, but they just need 14 days to get their money sorted and they'll pay a premium price.
And they stood there at the auction with their hands over their eyes and their fingers crossed behind their back.
So to your question, why are there more auctions this time of year than we've probably seen? I think auctions becoming a pretty common method of sale. It gives people certainty before Christmas, which at the top of the show is what we sort of spoke about. Everyone wants a result. They want to be able to move forward, knowing that they are moving and with the funds, not necessarily in the bank, but unconditional, to move with where they want to go and be able to make offers really confidently themselves. It also affords them the chance to stress less sooner and hopefully extract an offer that allows them to make decisions before that auction date comes. And I think the reason they're all on the 7th of December is because school wraps up on the 13th. that week of the 9th to the 13th or whatever it might be is probably the last real working week of the year where you're going to get deposits paid and building and pest inspectors through and all this sort of stuff. So yeah, after the 7th, I can't imagine a lot of people in real estate doing much other than going to Christmas parties. So that kind of is D-Day for 2024.
So with that in mind, as a buyer in the market right now, you need to be wary of the fact that just because there is a December 7th auction date in the calendar, that you might have had a conversation on the first 3 days that a property was listed. Now they're seeing it all the way through, or they're not ready to take offers as yet. You had that same conversation on the Saturday. Keep on your toes. Keep on your toes, because you can have that conversation 2 or 3 times with that agent saying they're not ready. You know, we need to let the market tell them a bit more, and then bang, they're selling this afternoon. You need to be ready. It's almost like, yes, we say prepare for an auction, but almost prepare for what could happen before the auction as well.
And I think you're not just in the pre-Christmas market that we're in now, but in a market where prices have been growing for so long, selling the week before the auction is a really common tactic, shall we say, strategic. Is really strategic from an agent and a seller's point of view, because there's every chance that in a market that's starting to taper off, there'll be separation between feedback in terms of one party loves the property but sees value at this price, another party loves the property, sees value at a higher price, someone likes the property, sees value at a lower price again, somebody who doesn't know the market has maybe just moved to Brisbane for a new job next year and has expectations of spending millions of dollars on property when it maybe is only worth $1 million, sees value here in an open and transparent auction environment, right? Which, other than negotiating one-on-one with a seller, is the best way to buy a property in our opinion. All those parties and their feedback doesn't really matter. Everyone just kind of edges their way towards where one party stops seeing value and the other party goes, geez, okay.
Yeah.
I'll pay that for sure. My feedback was here. Whereas the week before the auction, on the Thursday or the Friday, when you get that text message saying, hey, we're selling this week, we've received offers, they're ready to sell, the gaps between the feedback matter exceedingly. They can be the difference between 50, 60, 100, 150 grand for that seller.
Yeah, you don't get to stand there and see their paddles, and you don't get to hear their bids. Yep. You are relying on the comms between yourself and an agent. And like you said, those gaps can be substantial.
For sure. So in any circumstance, Christmas, pre-Christmas, after Christmas, Easter, middle of the year, it doesn't matter. Know where you see value in a property. Come back to the point that you made earlier about understanding comparable sales. Look at the listings that have sold. Look at the ones that aren't selling. Build a picture of value in that property. Where you see value, high chance is going to be different to where somebody else who loves it just as much as you do sees it. But figure out what it's worth to you and stick to your guns. Understand and prepare for auction. But if it gets pulled forward, nothing really changes, right? If you want to buy it, that's your price. It's as simple as that. And in our view, if something that was going to be done out in the open comes behind the scenes, it is better to go for it and potentially miss out at your price than go for it and be manipulated into paying somebody else's just to get this house.
100%. And it should be the same conversation as if you were preparing for that auction, that is not only the number that you would be willing to see value at and willing to pay to secure that property, but the $100 more is the price that you need to be okay and content with walking away from it. It should feel like a win either way. And I know that is for those that haven't found themselves in that situation, that might sound crazy. They're like, what do you mean? If I miss it by $100, I'm going to feel like a schmuck. No. Because if you've pushed each other, sat there across a table and been like, hey, if we were told that we could buy it for this amount today, would we say yes? Yes. Okay, well then that's our new number. And keep increasing that number until we're like, hell no, I wouldn't buy it if we were offered it with a price tag on the letterbox today.
Yeah.
And that's the number that you put forward, making sure that you're conscious of conditions. I'm assuming that if it's an auction campaign, that you're going to be offering auction conditions, but little things like settlement dates, deposit amounts, making sure they're all in line with the expectations of the selling party. Really important, but the last dollar is the last dollar, and it needs to be put there so that you can, walk away happy either way.
It's a lot of work, but actually if you go to these 5 or 6 open homes on a Saturday afternoon, go to the Holland Park Hotel, get a $12.50 jug of 4X Gold, right, as we often do on a Saturday afternoon.
At the top bar, not down at the restaurant.
Definitely go to the top bar with the barflies. It's just better vibe. But sit down, get home, whatever it is, put a movie on for the kids, and get the brochures out and go, okay, what would we offer for this place if we liked it? And even if it's not the house for you, run the exercise, because you'll get really comfortable with each other talking about price. And the last thing that you want to do is feel like you're rushed when you're talking about price. You want to be confident in the decisions that you're making, and that takes practice. So you've got 5 brochures, make the most of them. What will we pay? 1.35, 1.45, 1.8, whatever the property is, right? Work your way backwards. No, we wouldn't buy it for that. We wouldn't buy it for this. We probably would buy it for that. And then that's the feedback you offer the agent if you don't like it. And that might be the feedback you offer the agent if you do like it and you're going to try and buy it before auction, at auction, or post-auction.
Either way, it's going to be a benefit to you. Agents love feedback. They do appreciate it, particularly if you're just a punter giving great feedback. They will remember that. They'll be almost taken aback by it. They go, we must be listening to Taking Back Saturday. Speaking of agents, a lot of them are spruiking about, buying before the rate cuts. Like almost like it's a given thing that we're going to see a rate cut, get in now before it goes crazy again. But I know that you and I have spoken about this off air that, maybe this rate cut's not as close as we all think it is.
Yeah, I mean, we've had plenty of meetings, I would say, with potential clients over the last month where they're pretty comfortable stretching themselves financially because they've missed out on stuff over the last 6 months where they haven't really been so. But it's all been off the back of there'll be a rate cut next year and we'll get that $200 a month back or whatever it might be. There might be a rate cut. We've been pretty bullish, I think, on the fact that we felt like an interest rate cut would come before Easter next year. Now, there'll be people who listen to this show who are cynics who'll be like, well, tomorrow's before Easter, guys. Is it going to be tomorrow? I'm thinking when we say before Easter, we're thinking, March, April. But there's an election next year. I think the RBA won't want to be seen to be playing politics. Next meeting's in December. They're not going to do anything before Christmas. Everyone spends way more money in December than they usually do. So the last thing they want to do is compound the inflation problem that they are starting to feel like they're on top of.
Real Grinch move.
For sure. Then you got meetings in February, April and May, I'm pretty sure it is. And there's an election that's going to happen in May. I think the latest date that an election can be is like the 17th of May next year. So they're not going to want to do too much before that date. And then whether it's the same government or a change of government after that election, they won't want to seem to be jumping in and being like almost rewarding whatever the decision that people make with like, here you go, finally. So, yeah.
Now we're starting to really get along in the year next year.
Man. And we're having this conversation on the 18th of November. If you're making a real estate decision to buy or move or invest based on a real estate interest rate, an RBA interest rate cut in the next 6 months, I would run your numbers again. And I'd speak to your mortgage broker. I think if you can make a decision today and there is no change for 12 months, that's a very prudent, conservative, safe, sensible, insert other adjective here, decision. And realistically, that's what I think a lot of people need to be doing, not betting on a cut and hoping for the best.
Yeah, 100%. If you are relying on some external factors to make your life feasible, affordable moving forward. That's a pretty scary place to be. Imagine 100%. What you're going to be like on those Tuesdays waiting for the RBA update to come through for your mortgage broker to send you through the email to say, hey, we're not doing anything again for another month.
And I think that commentary, and we've been getting it a lot, right, from agents, it's indicative of a market that's slowing down. They're just looking for what lever can they pull to try and get the seller's expectations met, instead of just bringing them great feedback and bringing them offers potentially at what's going to buy the property and having those hard conversations. It's a hell of a lot easier to say to a buyer in the market, don't worry, this will feel cheaper in 6 months than it is to go to your seller and say, hey, remember that price that we promised?
Eek.
Anyway, here's 5.5% less than that. What do you want to do?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that is a snapshot of what we're seeing out in the market come the mid-November through to the start of December. Any tip for the weekend, Sam?
If you'd asked me last week, I would have said pack an umbrella.
Keep an umbrella in the car always.
Keep an umbrella in the car always. Thankfully, my golf clubs are in the car, so there's an umbrella in there, which came in really handy on the weekend. I genuinely believe that there hasn't been a better, in inverted commas, time to be out there buying property. Certainly in inner city Brisbane in the last 12 months. Yes, it costs a little bit more than it did 12 months ago, but you're probably going to have another bidder at an auction, or you might have another offer behind the scenes versus 4 or 5 and up 12 months ago, where you're paying a little bit more money now, but the risk of overpaying is much less, in my opinion. So if you can afford it, if you're well prepared, and if it's a long-term decision, don't be scared about buying a house this time of year.
Yeah, remain consistent, keep your eyes up, and a result will be not too far away. He's Sam, I'm Chase. Cue the song.